Alright, World War One, we have it, it's here, it's horrible. We need money, we need land, we need troops, we need supplies. Great. Now with the rise of World War One, we have Australia. Australia has already had normal civilians actually trained for the Australian Army, the AIF, and they were actually trained for normal civilian household protection. And with this, when Germany first set off war against Britain, they're like, hey, we need troops. Where are y'all? Australia actually offered a lot of their troops to Britain, which helped Britain fight back Germany. Now, skip a little bit to World War II, right? Now, Germany again sets off to France, and because Britain is alliance with France, Britain is now in the war too. Great. Now, we have Britain. They need more troops. They have their perfect arsenal of troops. But what's better than the Grunkas? The Grunkas, they were a great tribe. They were already farm workers, so harsh conditions were normal. These people were already living in the plantations, doing everything farm style. Saying no to an answer? What's that? We're the Gurkhas, we do anything. It's better to die in battle than to live a life as an accountant. That's the Gurkhas, right? And then, now we have conscription. Great. Conscription, drafting people for war. Oh, no one likes that, huh? Having your child being taken away? It's fine. We're gonna win the war, as everyone thought, because to get more troops, the German army actually violated the Treaty of Versailles and actually made the SA, which he soon got rid of, and made the SS, which was basically the German army, but for Hitler. And he soon actually made it official, which broke the Treaty of Versailles, causing a big problem, which we all know, which was World War II. Now Germany's causing havoc in Britain and France, and Russia's like, alright, you deal with that. We're done, right? No, we're not, because now Britain is drafting. Now they are also doing army conscription. Great! Now we have the British getting all these troops, all these people. But what's worse, Germany actually attacked America's ships, cargo ships, ships in general, civilian ships, just to get to places in general, and which angered America, causing them to get into the war with Germany now. Now we have conscription in America, Britain, Germany, everywhere now.
Imperialism is defined as the policy of extending the rule or authority of an empire or nation over foreign countries. New imperialism is defined as a period of colonial expansion by European powers, the United States, and Japan in the late 19th century and early 20th century. Due to technological and sociological advances of the time, European and Asian imperialist powers were able to invade and hold control over overseas lands. The Japanese government during this time turned expansion into a systematic goal for security, national pride, resources for industrialization, settlement for overpopulation, and markets for manufactured goods. Japan was the first non-Western imperial power that rose to imperial status after facing colonization by the West. They saw how effective the Western imperialist policies were, so they decided to modernize their economy and assimilate European strategies to fit their needs. For the Japanese, imperial power meant a market to export to and a source of cheap raw materials. Japan was able to dominate the sale of manufactured goods, especially in textile. Europe was considered to be the worldwide contingent when it came to imperialism. Nations like England, Spain, and France obtained colonies ranging all the way from Americas to India and Australia. At the start of the 20th century, global demand for resources increased substantially. Countries along the world had gone through economical changes and became primarily reliant on biomass to meet energy and material needs to urban industrialized economies. Technological advances accompanied with economic development provided many more uses for resources and greatly improved methods for locating and extracting them. Populations also rise due to these advances, therefore requiring a higher demand on food and natural resources in which we are dependent on.
Progressing forward from World War I, there was an economic crisis in Germany in the 1920s and 30s as a direct result of the Treaty of Versailles. This economic crisis was blamed on the Jews, which is an example of ethnic conflict. This scapegoat was used to increase nationalism in Germany, and that only fueled the fire of the rivalry between Great Britain and Germany. This rivalry eventually came to a climax when Germany invaded Poland in 1939 and England declared war on Germany, and this would lead to the global conflict known as World War II.
Continuing where we left off, at the end of World War II, Europe was split into two, the West and the East. The West was given to the US, while the East was given to the Soviet Union. Both superpowers were giving the financial aid to the Europe, so it will repair faster from World War II. The ideologies of these countries were different though. Communism was in Soviet Union, and capitalism was in the US. Both ideologies were contradictory to each other.
NATO, the North Atlantic Trade Organization, was created in 1949 by the United States, Canada, and several Western European nations to provide collective security against the Soviet Union. NATO was first peacetime military alliance the United States entered outside of the Western Hemisphere. The NATO organization helped their alliances economically and to keep them stable from getting attacked from the Soviet Union, so they have more military defense to help them. The Warsaw was created by the Soviet Union, which counterbalanced the NATO organization, which helped them just be the same as the United States. The Vietnam War started November 1st, 1995 and ended April 30th, 1975. The leader was Ho Chi Minh. He was the leader of the Communist Party. In Vietnam, or also known as Viet Cong, the Vietnamese were good at camouflaging as civilians and acted like civilians. They knew their terrain very well. They used it against the United States, and they used it as an advantage. They also fought guerrilla warfare. The northern Vietnam fought against the United States and South Vietnam. Most historians recognize this as a tie or a loss. French dictator Barbet Corder was the one who funded the Ugandan dictator and his army for this 1974 awards. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, leaders of the US and the Soviet Union engaged in a tense 13-day a political and military standoff on October 1962. This all happened because of the leaders of Cuba and the leader of the USSR came together in an agreement of them deporting their nuclear missiles onto the Cuban grounds. So the US did the same with the country of Turkey. This all happened in the span of 13 days. If this would have continued on, there would have been a nuclear war. Vietnam, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and Idi Amin were all part of a proxy war. The funds of stopping Vietnam came from NATO, which helped South Vietnam against Northern Vietnam. The missile crisis was stopped by NATO because of the alliance with Turkey. Idi Amin was funded by a French dictator who helped him become Butcher of Uganda.
The dissolution of the Soviet Union affected the Cold War by forcing the USSR to leave the Cold War, therefore ending it. At this time, the USSR was economically unstable, which led them to not being able to fund or pay the economic systems of many other allies, which included East Germany, Poland, and Hungary. This caused a lot of outcry and many revolutions and rebellions against the USSR, which the USSR put down immediately. Later on, the rebellions and the revolutions caused the break of the Soviet Union. This led the US victorious in the Cold War and ended the race.